The pursuit of homeownership has long been considered an essential part of the American dream. For decades, buying a home was viewed as a solid investment and a source of financial stability. However, the past 15 years have revealed deep flaws in the housing market, leading to what many now call a housing crisis. Skyrocketing home prices, paired with stagnant wages and limited affordable housing inventory, have put homeownership out of reach for a large portion of the population. Making matters worse, the number of individuals experiencing homelessness continues to climb each year. In this video, we will take an in-depth look at the ongoing housing crisis in America. We'll examine the housing bubble that led up to the 2008 market crash, the impact of the Great Recession, the COVID-19 pandemic, and other factors that have contributed to the affordability issues and homelessness epidemic we see today. Our video will explore important questions like, how did we get to this point? Who has been most impacted? And what steps can be taken to provide more affordable, stable housing options for all Americans. Leading up to 2008, there were several key factors that caused housing prices to skyrocket to unsustainable levels, setting the stage for crisis. Loose lending standards, predatory mortgage products like subprime loans, and widespread property speculation fueled a housing bubble that saw the median home price increase over 50% in just 5 years. With easy access to credit, and families taking on larger mortgages than they could truly afford, homeownership rates reached record highs. Yet the foundation was shaky as many new homeowners carried high debt levels and risky loan products. When the housing bubble burst in 2008 due to high default rates, it sparked a financial crisis followed by the Great Recession, the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. Millions lost their homes to foreclosure, and housing prices plummeted, with the median price dropping over 30% from 2006 to 2009. The crisis had severe economic consequences, causing unemployment levels to rise to 10% and wiping out trillions in household wealth. In the wake of the housing crisis, tighter lending standards and a slow economic recovery kept the housing market depressed for years. New regulations were enacted to protect consumers from risky lending products. But inventory also lagged, as construction of new homes slowed to a crawl after 2008. That lack of new housing construction is a key reason why prices and competition for homes have surged again in recent years. By 2019, housing prices had rebounded nearly nationwide, even exceeding peak levels seen before the 2008 crash in many markets. Just as values were rising, the COVID-19 pandemic hit in early 2020. While feared to cause another housing slump, the pandemic ultimately accelerated price growth even further due to several key factors. Record low mortgage rates, shifts to remote work, and urban flight drove intense demand. At the same time, listings fell as owners delayed selling. With bidding wars common, home prices grew by over 20% in just 2 years, the fastest growth in modern history. Now in 2023, affordability issues have reached a new extreme. Home values continue climbing faster than wages, stretching budgets thin for many buyers. Bidding wars and cash offers price out first-time home buyers, who also often lack the down payment funds needed. Additionally, the supply of entry-level homes remains limited. With mortgage rates rising again, the window for affordable homeownership may be closing for many hopeful buyers. The seeds of the 2008 housing crisis were sown in the years leading up to it, as an overheated housing market inflated a massive bubble that eventually burst. In the early 2010s, a combination of factors created the perfect conditions for home prices to detach from historical norms and enter a period of hypergrowth that proved to be unsustainable. Several key factors drove demand in the housing market during this bubble period. Firstly, the Federal Reserve kept interest rates extremely low after the dot-com crash in 2001, lowering the cost of borrowing money and mortgages. This fed buyer demand. Secondly, creative and risky mortgage products were marketed to consumers, including subprime loans, no documentation loans, and adjustable rate mortgages with low teaser rates. These products allowed buyers to stretch their budgets and purchase more expensive homes, further driving demand. Speculation also played a major role in inflating the bubble. As home values rapidly rose year after year, buying real estate was viewed as a can't-miss investment. Many people purchased homes not just to live in, but with the expectation that prices would continue rising double digits each year, enabling them to flip the home for a big profit. This speculative mindset fueled a buying frenzy. By 2004, nearly 1 in 4 houses sold were for investment purposes. With demand booming, home builders responded by breaking ground on massive suburban developments across the country. Yet even the spiking construction couldn't keep pace with insatiable demand, further driving prices upward. Areas like California, Florida, Arizona, and Nevada saw some of the most feverish appreciation. Overall, the median home price in the U.S. would increase over 50% from 2000 to 2006. Of course, wages did not see equivalent growth, meaning home prices were rapidly decoupling from local incomes. In many cities, prices had become clearly unsustainable based on historical metrics like the ratio of home values to rents or median incomes. Beneath the surface, the mid-2010s housing boom was underscored by weak credit standards and an over-reliance on debt. Lenders wrote millions of subprime mortgages to borrowers with poor credit, often with adjustable rates that would spike within a few years. Down payments were small or even non-existent. Predatory terms, exaggerated appraisals, and encouragement of excessive borrowing became commonplace. The rapid price gains were also fueling borrowers to take on larger mortgages and greater risk under the assumption that continued appreciation would enable them to quickly refinance. Yet refinancing would only be possible if prices kept going up double digits indefinitely, an irrational expectation. In 2005, the median borrower was coughing up over 37% of income towards mortgage costs, substantially exceeding the recommended 28% limit. And by late 2006, nearly 1 in 5 buyers were purchasing highly risky interest-only loans. The foundation supporting the housing boom was compromised by loose lending standards, widespread speculation, and excessive leverage. When home prices did finally peak and turn negative in 2006, everything unraveled with alarming speed. The teaser rates and creative loan products that fueled many purchases during the boom years began expiring, exposing borrowers to higher payments they could no longer afford. The wave of defaults that followed kicked off the foreclosure crisis, causing home values to free fall. In retrospect, the housing bubble was allowed to inflate too far due to the easy credit and irrational expectations of the early 2000s, and millions of buyers ended up overextending themselves financially to chase those ephemeral gains. When the market reversed, the fallout was severe, leading to the greatest housing collapse since the Great Depression. In the wake of the housing crisis, the real estate market remained depressed for years as the wider economy slowly recovered. By 2009, national home prices had plunged over 30% from their 2006 peak. The median home value didn't return to pre-crisis levels until 2016. While prices languished, several key trends unfolded during this 2009 to 2019 period. First, inventory surpluses in some markets led to high numbers of foreclosures and short sales. With unemployment peaking at 10% in 2009, many struggling homeowners defaulted on their mortgages. Lenders took over millions of properties, yet had trouble selling them due to weak demand. In hard-hit states like Florida, Nevada, and Arizona, half or more home sales were either foreclosures or short sales by 2011. This distressed inventory weighed on prices. Second, lending standards tightened considerably after the loose practices of the 2000s. Stricter requirements for credit scores, income, and down payments made mortgages harder to obtain. Tighter credit limited the pool of eligible buyers, slowing the housing recovery. The homeownership rate declined steadily from a peak of 69% in 2004 to 63% by 2014. Third, new home construction came to a halt after the crisis. Builders broke ground on 90% fewer homes in 2009 compared to the 2006 peak. Construction remained below historical averages throughout the 2010s. This lack of inventory also constrained price growth during the recovery. By late 2012, home values had finally bottomed nationwide and started appreciating again. Price growth remained modest at around 5% annually from 2012 to 2019. But steady gains helped rebuild buyer confidence. And critically, there wasn't another bubble forming. Appreciation was grounded in stronger economic fundamentals like incomes, rents, and construction levels. While values didn't return to peak levels nationally until 2016, some markets fully recovered much sooner. Technology hubs like San Francisco saw renewed booms due to strong job growth. By 2019, prices had accelerated again nationwide as buyers competed for limited inventory. The housing market entered 2020 on solid footing right before the pandemic upended everything. The COVID-19 pandemic upended the economy after emerging in early 2020, but would ultimately have an extremely positive impact on U.S. housing prices. The median home price increased over 20% in just 2 years, the fastest growth on record. Several key factors stemming from the pandemic supercharged demand in the housing market, leading to intense competition, bidding wars, and the acceleration of home prices. In early 2020, initial unemployment spikes and economic uncertainty caused by COVID-19 lockdowns led many to predict housing prices could crash again. But emergency stimulus and forbearance programs prevented a foreclosure crisis, while expansionary Federal Reserve policy drove mortgage rates to unprecedented lows. 30-year fixed rates fell below 3% for the first time ever by July 2020. As rates bottomed out, demand came roaring back. Millennials were buying first homes in huge numbers, aided by remote work flexibility and lagging inventory in starter home markets. Existing homeowners rushed to refinance at lower rates or upgraded to more spacious homes, and affluent buyers flush with stock market gains purchased vacation properties. The surge in demand collided with ultra-low supply as home listings fell over 20% in 2020 versus pre-pandemic levels. Existing owners were hesitant to sell during lockdowns. Builders also faced materials shortages that constrained new construction. With demand far outpacing supply, bidding wars became the norm across the country. By the end of 2020, median home prices were up over 10%. But the market was just heating up. As vaccines rolled out in 2021, buyers emerged in droves, especially in suburbs and smaller metros offering more space and affordability. Large corporate investors like BlackRock and Zillow jumped into the market, purchasing tens of thousands of homes sight unseen to convert to rentals. With mortgage rates remaining under 3%, affordability actually improved for many buyers in 2021 despite rapid price gains. Home values grew nearly 20% over the year, marking the fastest annual appreciation in modern history. Once again, inventory couldn't keep pace, sinking 30% lower than pre-pandemic levels. Cash offers and waiving appraisals became common, with bidding wars leading homes to sell tens of thousands above asking. The ultra-competitive dynamics were especially hard on first-time buyers. Investors often outbid traditional buyers for starter homes, leaving many millennials stuck renting. The number of first-time buyers fell over 10%, even as overall purchase activity set new records. While demand moderated slightly in 2022, home prices have remained resilient. Appreciation is slowing but still in double-digit territory, while supply constraints continue. The pandemic's impact led to a permanent step change higher in housing costs, worsening affordability challenges for many Americans. In just 2 years, home values rose over 40% cumulatively, gains that historically took over a decade. Household wealth increased by trillions, but also concentrated in the hands of those owning real estate ahead of the pandemic. Meanwhile, first-time and lower-income buyers often found themselves priced out of the market entirely. Looking ahead, the housing market remains at heightened risk of a correction as rates rise and economic growth slows. But for now, the effects of the pandemic have cemented a new reality of high home costs that will challenge affordability for years to come. The COVID housing boom has left a complex legacy of historic wealth creation alongside greater inequality. While home values have skyrocketed over 40% during the pandemic, homebuyer incomes have not kept pace. This growing disconnect has fueled an affordability crisis that continues intensifying today. Younger generations, lower income groups, and essential workers are finding it nearly impossible to purchase homes at current prices. Rents are also spiking, showing the lack of affordable options extends to rentals too. Nationwide, only 30% of millennials currently own homes, 15% lower than Generation X and baby boomers when they were the same age. Student debt burdens, rising home costs, and slim starter home inventory have priced many millennials out of the market. Those able to buy are stretching their budgets thin, with millennials' mortgage balances doubling since 2009. The problem extends far beyond millennials. Over half of Black, Latino, and Indigenous households now spend over 30% of income on housing, a disproportionate burden. Essential workers like teachers and nurses are also locked out of expensive metro areas where they work. Appreciation has simply outpaced incomes by too great a margin for many Americans to keep up. While low mortgage rates kept payments affordable through 2021, the rate spike in 2022 added insult to injury. Rates on 30-year fixed mortgages have shot above 6%, double the 2020 average. At today's prices and rates, a median home now costs a household earning $75,000 over $750 more per month than 2 years ago, a massive added cost burden. Higher rates have pushed home sales down over 25% since January 2022 as more buyers get priced out. But so far, prices have remained resilient due to persistent supply shortages. There are now 60% fewer homes for sale than before the pandemic, giving sellers little incentive to lower prices. Until inventory rises substantially, buyers will continue competing over limited options. The crisis extends to the rental market, where rents are rising at the fastest pace on record. Nationwide, rents were up over 15% year over year in August 2022. Landlords are passing higher purchase prices, taxes, and interest rates onto tenants. With rents consuming a greater slice of paychecks, it becomes even harder for renters to save for a home. While house price growth is slowing marginally, a significant pullback seems unlikely in the near term. New construction is increasing but well below historical levels. Investors also now own a record share of homes and are unlikely to sell at a loss. Without substantial new supply, strong seller leverage will continue limiting inventory and keeping prices elevated. Absent a surge in new home construction, many economists do not foresee home prices retreating to pre-2020 levels in the foreseeable future. Younger, lower income, and first-time buyers already stretched financially before the pandemic have little cushion left. For these groups, the window to affordable homeownership may be closed until wage growth can catch up. Rising rents also show that affordable housing issues go beyond the sales market. In booming job centers like Austin and Miami, median rents exceed median mortgages, locking service workers out of both owning and renting. With wages failing to keep pace, experts warn U.S. housing affordability issues will worsen before improving, deepening inequality. Solutions like zoning reform, low-income buyer assistance, and affordable housing construction will take time. Meanwhile, younger and lower-income Americans face an increasingly bleak, prohibitively expensive housing market. The legacy of the pandemic boom may be a generation locked out of housing stability their parents took for granted. The rapid rise in housing costs over the past decade has contributed to a growing homelessness crisis across the United States. Even before the impacts of the pandemic, homelessness was on the rise, with over 580,000 people experiencing homelessness on any given night in 2020. The latest counts show homelessness increasing in communities nationwide as unaffordable rent and lack of housing push more Americans onto the streets. The primary driver of surging homelessness numbers is the severe shortage of affordable housing options. With rents rising faster than incomes, low earners are spending an increasingly unsustainable portion of their paycheck just to keep a roof over their heads. A minimum wage worker would now need to work over 90 hours a week to afford a modest one-bedroom rental in most U.S. counties. With so many households living paycheck to paycheck, any disruption, a job loss, medical event, car breakdown, can easily spiral into missing rent payments and eviction. Eviction records in turn make it nearly impossible to find decent housing, fueling chronic homelessness. Estimates suggest over 300,000 Americans are evicted every month, feeding the homeless crisis. The problem is especially severe in cities like Los Angeles, New York, and Seattle with hot job markets but severely inadequate affordable housing supplies. These cities have seen homeless encampments proliferate in recent years. Makeshift shelters under highways and in public parks are now commonplace. Certain demographic groups face disproportionately high risks of homelessness amid the ongoing housing affordability crisis. Young adults ages 18 to 25 have seen homelessness spike, with many unable to secure stable housing after aging out of foster care or parental support. LGBTQ youth are also overrepresented, often driven to homelessness by family rejection. Veterans are another at-risk group, with over 37,000 homeless former service members nationwide. Physical and mental health challenges stemming from military service can make maintaining steady housing difficult without support. Chronic homelessness is also more prevalent among veterans. While homelessness rose among all ethnic groups, Black and Native American individuals saw the sharpest increases. Systemic inequality and lower average incomes make these groups more vulnerable to housing instability. In many cities, the majority of homeless individuals are Black, highlighting deep disparities. Domestic violence is another common cause of homelessness, driving many women and children especially onto the streets. Without access to emergency shelters and transitional housing, victims of abuse often have little choice but to live out of their vehicles or make other unsafe temporary arrangements. Perhaps most distressing is the rise in youth and family homelessness. Over 35,000 children experience homelessness on an average night in America. The lack of affordable housing deprives vulnerable young children of healthy development, education, and sense of safety at a key formative age. While temporary federal relief measures during COVID-19 likely prevented an even worse surge in homelessness, long-term solutions remain lacking. Emergency shelters offer a band-aid, but keeping individuals off the streets permanently will require addressing core housing affordability issues. Expanding affordable housing funds, increasing Section 8 rental assistance programs, and establishing more transitional programs for at-risk groups should be policy priorities. Incentives for landlords landlords and developers to offer below-market rental units can also help. Comprehensive solutions are needed to combat the homelessness crisis being fueled by a housing market priced out of reach for many Americans. The housing crisis unfolding today has been many years in the making. Loose lending practices and irrational exuberance inflated the housing bubble that peaked in 2006, setting the stage for the devastating 2008 crash. While prices and lending standards slowly normalized over the next decade, new construction lagged behind demand. By the late 2010s, inventory shortages and rising prices were already straining affordability. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, it supercharged demand in the housing market to unprecedented levels. Ultra-low mortgage rates, remote work trends, and stimulus-fueled buying drove prices up over 40% within just 2 years. While current owners enjoyed massive gains, first-time and lower-income buyers were largely priced out of the market. Now in 2023, affordability issues have reached historic extremes. Home prices remain near peak levels even as rates rise, while rents are skyrocketing as well. Younger and lower-income Americans are spending unsustainable portions of pay on housing, depleting savings and preventing wealth building. Meanwhile, growing unaffordability continues to exacerbate the homelessness crisis. With rent consuming bigger chunks of paychecks, any disruption can quickly spiral into missing payments and eviction, fueling homelessness. While the market may be peaking for now, few expect home prices to fall dramatically without a significant recession. With demand still outpacing constrained supply, housing affordability will remain a major challenge for years to come. Both policymakers and builders need to take aggressive steps to expand affordable housing access if there is any hope of addressing the crisis. The dream of comfortable, affordable, and stable housing is slipping away for too many Americans. Urgent solutions are needed to chart a new course.